X marks the spot, and you're listening to America's most hypnotic podcast, The Pod People. Actually, you know what? You're listening to Glorious Nippon's most hypnotic podcast, The Pod People.
That's us, baby.
I'm Matisse Van Rossum, but I want to know about you.
I'm Ben Sheets, and X gon' give it to you.
You know, that was my name. So instead, I'll just say, I think I'm the real X that's going to give it to you. Because knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. Tick-tock, did you know hypnosis is real?
All right, that was good. That was very good.
I got you.
Hypnosis is real, and we're here to talk about it on this episode. This was my pick, a movie I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, especially since we saw and talked about Longlegs.
Yes.
It's given me the itch for which there is only one cure, and it's Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure.
And I finally understand why you wanted to cover this after Longlegs.
Yes. This has been like I've had like a few movies that like a few picks lined up, and like this has been one of them for a long time, like prior to seeing Longlegs. So it's just kind of serendipitous that happened to be my next pick after Longlegs, because like
it was.
Yeah, but yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this movie for a long time, pretty much ever since I first saw it, which was, I guess, about a year ago. This movie came out in 1997, directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who we have talked about before on the podcast way, way, way back on our second episode ever. We talked about Pulse, which is a favorite of mine. But yeah, this came out a few years before that and is kind of considered the progenitor of the big boom of late 90s, early 2000s J-horror. This was the first one, pretty much.
Yeah.
And probably still one of the best, I think, for me.
Yeah.
I've seen it twice now.
Yeah, Kurosawa has such a unique style between this and Pulse. Like, it's so distinctively, like, procedural
Yes.
in nature. And, like, the way Kurosawa shoots in particular is, like, very, like, rigid. Like, a lot of, like, very wide takes where, like, there's not overemphasis on any particular thing.
Yeah, for a lot of scenes in this movie, he, like, just shoots the master. Like,
Yeah.
that's basically it. And I love it.
Yeah, it's very economical in that respect. But what I love so much about Cure is he plays with that form super well with the hypnotism sequences, because that's where you do get, actual emphasis, and it really kind of punctuates these scenes.
And more cuts and stuff, too. Yeah. You had seen this before, right, Ben?
Yeah. I saw it in film school, I believe.
Okay. This was your first time, Clave.
Yes,
Is this your first Kiyoshi Kurosawa? Have you seen Pulse?
No.
You should. But I'd be curious to get your take. I know it's a lot coming off of a first viewing.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious how you're feeling.
Still enraptured by it.
Hypnotized?
I did make a mistake and have half an edible beforehand, and I think
Ben and I each had a full one.
You did. I'm a lightweight, and so that effect. And I'm still trying to discern how much of it was that, and how much of it was just the
movie,
the film itself. And it also I'm a little sleep deprived, so I was like trying to struggling to kind of stay like lucid throughout the whole thing, which did not make it. It certainly fit.
I probably enhanced the experience.
Yeah, sort of an additional chemical assist, if you will. Yeah, so I'm feeling like I said, like almost enchanted by the film myself. I'm gonna need to watch it a few more times. I think.
What I love
don't
is
give,
that's
like,
totally by design, though, right?
Yes.
Like, it's meant to kind of
mesmerize you.
Yeah, that's how I felt after my first viewing as well. And again, with the Longlegs comparisons, if you haven't listened to our episode on Longlegs, go back and do that. Because I think we're gonna be we're gonna be making the comparisons a lot.
Quite.
But this is a movie that really rewards multiple viewings, in that once you know where it's going, you can really kind of just like sit back and take in the process. I've seen Longlegs 3 times now, and really felt that I gleaned more from it on like each subsequent viewing.
Sure.
And now on like a second viewing of Cure, yeah, it just like enriched that first experience that I had with it a year ago.
Yeah, well, what's interesting comparing it to Longlegs is, again, like, in terms of like how the stories are approached, like, aesthetically and stylistically, they're very different, right? Like, there's a lot of similar elements in sort of the procedural, but where Oz Perkins really focuses on elements in the frame and kind of really has kind of an aesthetic thing, this one is more naturalistic, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that the aesthetic of Cure is less obtrusive than Longlegs. Maybe that's the wrong word, but I would say that Kurosawa is probably just as concerned with aesthetic as Oz Perkins is,
absolutely.
but it's a much more restrained and an understated approach to it, because considering like the structure of the film and the thematic content of the film, yeah, it is designed to sort of like lull you into a state of hypnosis, and if it was ever too flashy, it would pull you out of that.
Absolutely.
There are a few times I noticed it intentionally breaks the spell on you. It reminded me of the, I mean, to get full nerdy about it, the bird jump scare in Citizen Kane. Like, there's a few sequences where scenes like cut very harshly. One instance of that is the character's been, I believe it was after someone's been hypnotized. I couldn't even tell you what comes before in the scene, but it's a hard cut to a furnace just blaring, and it did the job. It kind of woke me up and brought me back, mom spaghetti, back to reality for a second, and could once again like bring myself to consider, like, contemplate like what's happening in the mystery of it and the plot. And yeah, it's quite effective. I have to say, like, that it does lull you into a state of like passivity, and I find that impressive.
Yeah, it is one of the most perfectly structured and paced movies I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I really love how they play with kind of the procedural genre. Like, this is definitely riffing off of stuff like Seven, for example, and
came out the same year as Seven, I think.
Yeah, just playing with that form, but telling a story that's very kind of terrifying in a lot of ways, in that, like, they play with kind of supernatural elements without, going out there with it. Keeping it grounded in a way. As
opposed, like, the big difference with Longlegs. I've very much come around on that aspect of Longlegs since we recorded our episode.
Same.
But just sort of like how explicit, like, the supernatural, like, satanic aspects of that movie become. It's like, this is just like the total opposite, where it's like, yeah, there is kind of a supernatural element to it, but it's so vaguely defined that even by the end of the film, you're kind of questioning whether it's real or just in your head or in the character's head, and just like, this is like my favorite kind of horror movie, where it just is like really, really horrible vibes and just like a steadily, slowly increasing sense of undefinable dread that you really cannot put your finger on, but it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and I feel like the heart of that is kind of the main killer here.
Yes.
Mamiya.
Yeah, Mamiya.
He is such a force in this movie. Like anyone who's around him is doomed, essentially.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about it is he plays it like he's so bored during all the scenes.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
He has kind of a disinterest.
Or like he's slow, you know, or
they play that
dumb.
up too because they have him have or feign amnesia, right? Like he's always asking, "Where am I? You know, who are you?"
That's one of my
Leading
favorite.
questions.
That's one of my favorite aspects of the movie is never quite being able to tell whether he is feigning that or if it's legitimate.
Yeah.
What I think, and again, I don't even know if I fully grasped this film on my first go, which is
it's a lot.
For me, I don't experience that very often. Like normally, I mean, we've got X many 100 podcast episodes of us coming out of a movie and being able to articulate it. So it's not all too common for me to feel this like kind of stumped. But my guess from that, again, without maybe having put all the pieces together just yet, is that he's being programmed to do it. Much like he's being programmed to program is sort of how I saw it. And that part of his programming, his amnesia, is forcing people like into a somnambolic state, right? Where he is, by asking them questions, he is forcing them to repeat themselves, to repeat his questioning,
it's part of
fall into his hypnosis, and also by like stating relevance, like that's a thing in like occultism, in like in hypnosis as well, is that the idea of forcing people to slow down and in tempo start just naming objects around them. It's counting sheep, basically. Yeah. And so you start looking around and you start like just pointing at like simple things around you in your space and acknowledging them. Can, tree, bus, etc. And like couch. And like you can just keep pointing at objects and you slowly fall into that state. And it allows you to manipulate that space. And I love that. I love that he does it as a trick. Like they think that they have the power over him. He's the one with amnesia, but he's forcing him to just restate, we're in a police building. We're in a police building. I'm this person. I am this person. He says, yes, you are this person. Tell me more about yourself. And they begin
to know about
and then
you.
He starts to manipulate what their self is on a psychological level. And I think that's really, really cool. And it works.
And it's done so subtly and deftly in this movie that you as the viewer don't even really realize it's happening.
The first time we're introduced to it, we just think he has amnesia.
They
found this guy, or at least I did. Like they found this guy and he has amnesia. And then like another person finds him and it's the same, and it's like, what is he? And there's so much like texture to it. On introduction, like there's so many different places your mind wants to go with it. Like I had all these crazy theories at the beginning in my head that is like, oh yeah, it's like it's a demon, it's this, and it kind of is, but like like he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't have any, but like then you start to think maybe he does, but by the end of it I kind of came back around on that as well, and I felt like he was also part of like the programming, and like this basically this.
I love the way
I don't want to spoil it just yet. But.
He Kurosawa shoots him. Visually during the scenes, because again, things are restrained a lot of the times, but whenever he's like starting kind of the hypnosis stuff on a person, a lot of times like he's in shadows. Right?
Oh man.
He felt like so
and like Kurosawa intentionally kind of shadows him out to almost be a dark force in the room,
darkening
literally.
the rooms that he's in. Man, that's one of my favorite things about Kurosawa and his style. You see it a lot in Pulse too, and in some of his other stuff, but he is, I feel like, uniquely talented in making like interior spaces feel oppressive and isolated, kind of. There's a quality to the way he like shoots interiors that you feel sort of like the space exists inside of like a void, and that there's like this oppressive darkness outside that is sort of like trying to close in on the characters inside. And it's nothing so like even specific as that, but it's just like the feeling that you get from watching these movies. And this is maybe the best example of it, I think. It's been a minute since I've seen Pulse, but Pulse
Well,
has
again,
some really
like,
great examples of that too.
The kind of thoughtfulness behind kind of shooting it like this is a really fine tightrope to walk, right? Like, pushing, like, the style of it runs the risk of, like, being, like, a barrier for the audience to be properly hypnotized by these scenes themselves. And he does a great job kind of merging the two extremely well. I love kind of the triggers of light in this movie, whether it's the kind of lighter that he has, or even when he spills the water. Yeah. And you're getting the reflections of the water. Just incredible.
The auditory triggers, too, are fan-fucking-tastic. Whether it's the dripping cups or the water, or even, like, the sound of the lighter, or, like, him... Like, there's a scene where he's banging on the radiator in his cell, and it's rhythmic. My favorite instance too is like with the sound of the rain, which we'll get into later. Yeah, because like that sequence needs to be broken down. It's incredible. That's my favorite sequence in the movie.
Yeah, let's. Geez, one of fucking many. It's so hard for me to choose, honestly. Let's back up a little bit. Let's sort of set the stage. We've talked about the vibe of the film, and we've gotten into our villain a little bit. Yeah, let's set the stage. So it's set in Tokyo, and we have a detective who is investigating a series of brutal murders that are seemingly unconnected but have sort of identical MOs. Where, somebody, usually a man, will like kill his wife or girlfriend or something and carve like a deep X into her throat, like severing both carotid arteries. And then later, when they interview the suspects, they have clear intent. They remember the crime. They describe it as it feeling like the natural thing to do, but in the aftermath, they do feel like regret and sorrow for what they've done. So that's the setting. The detective investigating all of these crimes. Again, very much like Long Legs. You see the connective tissue where, these murder suicides or whatever, they're unconnected, but there's some little like clues that tie them all together. Some specific things.
Well, we get a cold open sort of murder that happens before everything is explained. Again, that one's shot just so well, where the guy like pulls off the pipe.
Yeah, like it's just like a guy like walking home from work, and like he's walking through a tunnel and he stops and like pulls off a piece of like the piping along the wall, and we then cut to like inside his apartment or whatever, and like his wife or girlfriend is like sitting on the bed, and he just sort of walks over and casually picks the pipe up and just fucking like very matter-of-factly just clobbers her. And it's set like this is sort of like part of like the opening credits. So it's set to like this like totally disjointed like jaunty ass music. And he like is in the shower like washing off all of the blood and stuff as like the detective is driving to the crime scene and shit. And honestly, like that's probably the most like obtrusive instance of music in the entire movie, because we've talked some about the sound, and I think what really enhances the sound design is like there's barely any music or score in this movie. Like you get some kind of spooky ambience, like
the
at times.
Are incredible.
Yeah, oh man, really richly layered and stuff, and then like for like a couple of scenes are enhanced with some like very very minimal like kind of spooky ambience,
weird synths almost.
yeah, but like hardly enough to even like pick out any sort of melody or anything, just kind of like some shifting notes. And that's really only like 2 or 3 times in the movie. And most of the time, it's all just...
I don't even know if I could name one instance where that happens. Honestly.
The one that I think of is when he's like hunting Mamiya in the hospital in that sort of like closed off section in the dark where he can't find him. And then like during like the towards the end, the psychiatrist's sort of vision that he has, and we'll break that down a little bit later, but there's some kind of dark synth stuff over that. But yeah, and I think that the choice to have pretty much all of like the action and the dialogue scenes and stuff just like totally devoid of music is like really allows you to sort of bathe in those soundscapes like you're talking about, and you're like, yeah, and hearing like every little like detailed thing, and it all feels like part of the process, the magic trick, the hypnosis, you know?
Yeah, it's so controlled.
But so we're introduced to Mamiya after we get this sort of cold open and see the detective like, you know, hunting a little bit, and then we just cut to this dude sitting on a beach, and he looks up and sees this guy off in the distance wearing a trench coat who kind of like wanders over and starts asking him like, where is this, where am I, and he'll tell him, and then like 30 seconds later he'll be like, where is this, you know, and he has amnesia, and so the guy like takes him back to his house, you know, to help him out or whatever, and you know, he finds the dude's name written in the like the tag of his coat, Mamiya, so that's how we know his name. But he's like trying to figure out who he is, and Mamiya keeps being like, I can't remember anything, but like I want you to tell me about you, like what is there to know about you? And the guy's like, oh no, nothing, like I'm a school teacher, I teach elementary school, and I'm married, and like that's it. And like you mentioned already, Cleve, it's like he just starts sort of like repeating these questions and getting, you know, the guy to repeat the answers and like, you know, making him think about who he is and stuff. And then the scene sort of ends with him, you know, asking if he can smoke, and he like pops his lighter and he's like, look at this. And then the scene ends. I like how like as we get introduced to Mamiya, like throughout these first like hypnosis scenes, we see a little bit more of the process each time before the scene cuts, and then we'll see the aftermath. So it's like,
and a few times it is pretty like we're coming up on frustrating because you want to see how it plays out, and so like it has you just so intrigued each time it begins again to learn a little bit more about like why.
But even in like this first scene with the school teacher in his house, it's like we don't know anything about Mamiya at this point. We don't know who this character is. Like we don't know that he's our villain yet, and they play it so subtly that
like a victim in distress.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, who is this poor guy who doesn't know anything? It's like there's definitely something off about him, and there's again like there's that kind of like dark oppressive quality to the room that they're sitting in, you know, but like the scene cuts before it gets like, you know, too sinister or anything.
Well, I love that approach in the movie because it almost feels like it's sucking you as the audience in.
Yeah, totally.
You know, the more you get kind of sucked into, you know, the hypnotism scenes, you see more and you get closer, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, no, it is really scary, especially by the time you get to the hospital scene where he hypnotizes the doctor. That's like the first time you see the process in full. We've got like the police scene before that too, which is also great. Because like some cops find him, he's like sitting up on top of of a roof, and he like jumps off, and so they take him back to the police box. They're trying the same thing. They're trying to like figure out who he is.
I love how that sequence is blocked out too, because like it's a real like distant shot, and we can see the police guy on the street, and then several floors up we see the guy sitting on the rooftop.
Yeah.
And so we follow the cop, and he goes up the stairs and up and around, and then it's a mid shot where he's by the ladder and he's looking up, and he's in the right third, and then to the left third is just the way down over there, and he just falls through the shot.
Yeah.
And it's excellent.
It's great.
Like and I love it too, because the cop, like, he doesn't scream. He doesn't I'm pretty sure he says "Bacana," which is "you stupid idiot," but like I think it's with affection too, if I remember correctly, which is kind of funny. Like it's almost endearing, like his response.
I like it too because it also kind of mirrors the aftermath of the previous hypnosis scene where we see like the teacher like throw himself out the window of his house, which is great because like it's just a wide shot of the house, and then the upper window like breaks as like he comes flying through.
You don't see it
and
coming.
then we get the shot from like inside the window and
Painted glass.
And see him like out on the lawn, and then it like pans down and the bed is like all torn up and there's just like a huge pool of blood on the bed. So yeah, like having Mamiya sort of like fall off the roof is sort of like mirroring that a little bit. But yeah, then they take him to the police box and they're questioning him and they're trying to, figure out who he is, and he's doing his same whole shtick as like, I don't know, where am I don't know my name, but tell me about you. I want to know about you.
One of the things I really love about kind of the structure of this is Mamiya's targets in the film are always like occupations where you feel protected, right? Like an elementary school teacher, or a cop, or a doctor,
or a nurse,
or a detective. They're all there to help you, quote unquote, in society.
Yeah, safety
and by choosing those to target in the film, it kind of pulls away that feeling of protection, like there's nothing you can do in society.
Interesting.
It makes them all the more powerful.
When these protective occupations are vulnerable.
I think that's a really interesting point that I'd never considered, and I think it really ties into something else, is that they're also all positions, like the kind of jobs where they become sort of like a key aspect of like who you are. Like when somebody asks like, oh, tell me about you, it's like, oh, I'm a doctor, or I'm a cop. It's like their positions define them.
Yeah. Well, and we hear the head detective, say I'm a detective a bunch.
Yeah, a bunch of times. And later in one of their confrontation scenes, he talks about how he has to keep the detective and like the husband parts of his life separate, because we also see that he has like a wife who has schizophrenia, some kind of mental illness or whatever. In fact, the film opens with like her at the hospital and she's like reading Bluebeard
Castle,
aloud to the doctor, and that's like part of Mamiya's whole process, is like forcing people to think about who they are, so he is able to implant or incept like new ideas and things about their personality, or specifically the will to murder.
Sure.
Which is one thing that like our the detective's friend, the psychiatrist character, says when they're starting to sort of figure out, it's like, is there something hypnotic, like, is there hypnosis going on here? And the psychiatrist is like, oh yeah, well, like, hypnosis is pretty common, but you can't change a person's sense of morals and ethics through hypnosis. It's like you can hypnotize somebody and get them to do things, but if they believe that murder is evil, then you can't hypnotize him to murder somebody. And the detective is like, so it's impossible. And he's like, oh, well, I mean, I didn't say that, but the hypnotist would really have to be like a genius, you know?
That's what I love about the hypnotist character. Like the detective partners with this kind of hypnosis expert, so to speak.
He's a psychologist, I believe.
Psychiatrist.
Yeah, he's a psychiatrist, yeah.
He's
like, I guess he works with the police or whatever, because the first time we meet him, they're in the police station. Yeah.
But he knows quite a bit about hypnotism, and he's kind of the source
he's our exposition. Our hypnosis
for
exposition.
Mm-hmm. But what I love is, despite him being an expert, he gets just as much pulled in.
Oh yeah, he becomes a victim of it too. But it's cool how it's like he's basically like, yeah, you know, the hypnotist would have to be like really brilliant to figure out a way to, you know, like make somebody think, basically like make them think that killing is something natural or something that they should do, something that they want to do. And it's in that hospital scene where we finally see like that full process and like see how Mamiya does that. That's definitely one of the contenders for my favorite sequence in the movie.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah.
It's so scary, and like I love the way it's shot too, because like we've talked about, like a lot of the movie is done with like mostly just like shooting the one wide master, and it's like all in one take. But this scene is like very considered about the way it handles space and timing and stuff. It's where the cinematography and the editing like sort of show their hand a little bit more, but in a way that really enhances it, because as he sort of like starts the process and she sort of starts to like fall under the sway, I love how he sort of like almost like teleports around the room or whatever. It's like she starts to look at him and he's like, don't look at me. And so she looks back down. And so we're just sort of like sitting there looking at her face, like looking down as he's talking. And then a few minutes later, like she sort of like looks back up and he's just like there, you know, and just like the way that they use those cuts to play with like time and where he is like in the room.
Yeah, it's such a cool trick to make us feel like we're hypnotized.
Yeah, it's interesting because of the rigidity of the rest of the movie until then, you know, the camera is very objective in a lot of the movie. But like in this scene, when we're getting kind of almost her perspective, you know, it becomes very subjective.
Exactly.
And that's what really pulls you into the
scene. It sucks you into it, and it makes you feel like you're being hypnotized along with her. So, like, he starts doing his normal shtick, like, asking a bunch of questions, like, tell me about you and stuff. But then he like, gets up and he goes over and he's, like, very slowly filling a glass of water. And he's like, he's like, can I tell you something? And says something to the effect of, everything that used to be inside me is on the outside now. So I can see what's inside you, but I am empty. And first of all, terrifying.
Just horrifying.
And I like how he enunciates when, or like how he sort of punctuates when he says I'm empty. He knocks the glass over.
It spills out across the floor. And
it's loud too, like when it hits like a loud clank that sort of like snaps you and like spills out across the floor. And then we've got those shots where just like watching the water just like sort of slowly spread across the floor and puddle.
That's when we know too that she's been enraptured.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't get up, she doesn't stop him. Like he's knocked this glass over and she's just still sitting there.
And I can't quite tell if it's something that they did as part of the filmmaking process, or if it's just kind of like a natural effect or whatever. It's what I love about it is like when the water like really starts to puddle, it like almost like darkens the floor underneath it, where it feels like it's sort of like becoming like a pool of shadow. Like it never gets to that point. Like it's not like, it doesn't have like food coloring or anything in it. Like it doesn't become like a pool of blood or anything like that. But it does feel like it's like pulling darkness into it.
Later on, there's a few instances where the water does have like a dark ink in it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And,
well yeah, they'll especially in like visions, and they'll like find stuff, like they go and find his nasty horrible apartment, and like the tub has just like a few inches of just like black, like
black ink on the water, on the wall. Later in that scene, there's the X's and like kind of a black ink.
He draws before he leaves,
and it's like water that's just been like had a few ink drops placed into it. It's murky. It's not like a jet black either, which is, it makes it feel more like an inherent pollution than it does just like an evil black darkness, you know? Like it's just this slow creeping shadow instead, and I love that. I love how that plays into almost every aspect.
But I love the way that he fucking, like, brilliantly incepts the idea to murder into her by starting out being, you know, he's like, tell me about you. She's like, oh, I'm a doctor or whatever. And he's like, why did you become a doctor? You're just a woman, and women are, you know, inferior to men after all. And that's what they always told you, right? When you were in medical school or whatever. I know there was a time where you had to dissect your first corpse, and it was the first time you ever saw a man naked, and you were surprised by how good it felt to like cut him open. And after that, you've always, or it's like you wanted to be a surgeon, but you couldn't hack it. You could only end up as like a general practitioner or whatever. But you've always known that all you want to do is to cut into a man. And just like this whole thing that like it plays it almost like he's like reading her mind and like speaking what she's thinking. And it's like, but it's like, no, he is like implanting that into her by playing off her insecurities about, you know, being, you know, a woman in a very male dominated field, and that like idea of how good and powerful it felt to like, you know, dissect, like to cut into a man. And it's like, yeah, that's what you want to do. and it works, you know. And then just a couple of scenes later, we see her fucking peeling the face off of some dude in a bathroom.
Probably the goriest shot of the film. It's horrid, honestly.
Yeah, it's so cool because like she's done the same thing where she's like carved an X into his throat, but it's like so deep that she's just like been able to like reach into like the point of the X and just sort of like lift the skin up and just like peel his whole face off like from the throat. I love it too because it's like so much of the violence in this movie, it's not treated with any as any sort of like spectacle. It just is there, you know. Like I think that scene is just like the camera just sort of like panning past the bathroom wall and then going into the door, and then it's just like, you know, there's no musical sting or anything. It just pans past the door, and there she is, just like on the floor over a body in a big pool of blood, like peeling his face off.
It's particularly disturbing because they're often passionate crimes executed dispassionately.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that to be quite disturbing. Like the opener where the guy like beats the prostitute to death with a lead pipe.
Yeah.
Like, it's beating someone to death with a lead pipe is the pinnacle passion crime, right? Just taking a raw, blunt object and just laying into somebody. But instead, like, he does it all so efficiently. Not like a hitman, not clean. Because, like, a hitman is very, you know, we'll take the extra steps to mitigate the mess.
Yeah.
Right? But here, like, he does it with, like, a clean, clear execution, but with no regard for the mess.
Yeah. And it's one of the things they mentioned.
And, like, often a crime of passion like that, where you're beating someone with a lead pipe, would be done with passion, right? Like, would be done with, like, but instead it's carried out very matter of fact. And it's so... And they don't ham it up. They don't play it up like they're an automaton. They don't act like a zombie when they do it. They just carry it out.
Yeah.
Well, I love how that's shown in that opening sequence too, because they go to the crime scene, the detective and the cops are there, and he goes into the shower, into the bathroom, and sees like the scene, and then he looks over and all the clothes are like nicely folded.
Yeah,
like,
and the dude's wallet is like sticking out with his ID and everything. It's like he just like left that there for them to find. Well, and then they find him like naked, curled up in like a crawl space down the hall. But like, yeah, it's and when they interview the school teacher in the asylum after he's killed his wife, and they're trying to figure out why, and it's like the teacher is just like. He says it seemed the natural thing to do at the time. And that's what Mamiya does to all of these people, is incepts the idea that, yeah, why wouldn't you want to kill somebody? It's like, of course you want to do that. Just as natural and plain as washing your hands or something. And that's how they all approach it. I love the scene where the cop like shoots the other cop after the interaction with Mamiya. It's like the one dude is just like going out on his patrol and he's getting on his bike, and the other cop is like, he picks some trash up off the ground and he goes and puts it in the waste bin. It's like a nice beautiful wide shot, and is just like walking back over and just very matter-of-factly sort of unbuckles his gun, pulls it out, shoots the other cop in the back of the head, puts it back, and just like walks back into the police booth.
And again, by doing it like mostly in the master shot, like very wide and clinical. Yeah, and it just emphasizes how mundane.
No musical sting,
and like it reminds me a lot of like Michelle Haneke's work in how like restrained it is in that stuff.
Well, it's cool, too, because, like, in that shot, there is so much additional information for us to unpack. Largely that we don't see, if I remember correctly, like, we don't see the exterior of the little police booth.
No.
When it's first introduced,
we're inside.
We're inside.
And it's nighttime. Again, like, the darkness is just...
So we don't realize how small that space is. Right? So, we become sort of familiar with this space, like, first, and then the latter scene, when we cut back to it, it's shot with the front doors of it open. It's clear. It's almost like an inset building, like, by design, to be, like, placed around busy parts of the city where there's just a couple cops. There's, like, 2 cops on post. In case anything happens, they're nearby. Right, it's not like a police precinct or like
they literally call it
a
police box multiple times, and that's what it is. It's just like a little single room, 2 guys sitting in there at their desks, just a little police post.
Yeah, and like for me, like we don't have those in the States, so that wasn't something I was familiar with. And what I like,
they have them in Europe though.
Cool, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, frankly, it makes good sense, like especially in like a higher population density area. But no, so yeah, we just see the interior of this little space, and then later when he goes out and he shoots his partner, like you were saying, Ben, like that single static shot is from across the street, and we're seeing it with the front doors of it open, and we can see into the entire space of the previous scene.
Yeah.
Or from several scenes back.
And it's shot with like deep focus, so you can kind of tell a ton of detail in the shot.
Yeah. Like, yeah, in just that center part of the frame. Yeah. And so it places us in the scene in a new way. And in addition to, it reinforces Mamiya's power. Like, he kind of spidered this event, like, from that little room. And from the shadows of that little room, it's, he's come out, and, the police officers come out, and he's popped the guy. Mm-hmm. And so even though Mamiya isn't in the scene, an echo of him is like visually there, and I think that's so cool. Like,
it's so cool and scary, like how throughout the film, like as it goes farther and farther, it's like you just realize more and more that's like anybody who does come into contact with Mamiya or who has is basically fucked. Is
Doomed.
like
Yeah.
they're it is like, especially by the end, it's like he has been like basically hypnotizing everybody. Like from
Yeah.
it's like he's so skilled and adept at it that like even though, you know, our detective has like multiple confrontations and interrogations with him and stuff, it's like it's really doomed from the first time he sets foot in the room with him.
yeah, he's a fucking fae. Like, he comes in and he steals your name. You know, like, he comes in and like he makes a deal with you, like, and turns you into a fucking pig or something. Like, I thought for most of the movie, I thought it was going in a sort of like killing of a sacred deer route, where like he's just this wandering curse.
And I mean, yeah, he basically is.
Who spirits
yeah.
people out of time and out of reality. Like, just with and that's what's so cool is like he essentially is and isn't. You get to have both in the coolest way, in a way that I can truly believe, in a way that put me under the spell myself, like through like tactical hypnotism. And that's so fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's so rad. I love it. I really do.
I love how, like, in the end, the threat almost feels like Lovecraftian and cosmic in a way, in that, like, you get kind of, like you were saying, Cleve, you get kind of multiple elements going on where, like, the true evil could be beyond, you know, what we see either.
It extends
Yeah.
beyond Mamiya.
Yeah.
He's not the source of it.
Yeah, it's coming in from the fucking mirror realm, you know?
Yeah,
like, it's,
he's a conduit.
yeah,
Well,
like he's the little like fairy creature that hides in the shadows. Like, it's so
I
cool.
But it's like so much less defined than that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's so vague.
Well, I love at one point they're watching like a recorded video, and person who's doing the hypnotism is just out of frame, and he does the same X.
yeah, the
right.
hand gesture with the
Yeah.
drawing the X in the air.
And
When they were interrogating the cop who shot the other one earlier, they sort of try to like reverse hypnotize him to like get him to talk about, you know, who he was with or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like the process kind of distresses him. But at one point he's just sort of standing in the corner and like one of his hands is just kind of down by his side, like making that gesture. Yeah. And they're like, what is that? Like, what are you doing? And he like notices that he's doing it. And then he like sort of freaks out, like rubs his hands like he's trying to like get dirt off of them or something.
Again, I love how they shoot that scene though when they're trying to reverse hypnotize.
Yeah,
because again, it's very restrained.
It's just,
you know,
the same master shot. Yeah,
such a juxtaposition between that hypnosis and Mamiya's hypnosis scenes.
Yeah,
where it's very, you know, in there.
Yeah, they're just kind of playing with it. They're like flashing like a pen light in his eyes, you know, like try to like they're not like they don't really know what they're doing, as opposed to like Mamiya, who is basically hypnotizes people just by existing in the same space with them, you know.
Yeah, it's great because like they take his lighter away, but he hypnotizes we've already seen that he's hypnotized the doctor with the
water, yeah,
because like he couldn't smoke in there, and
so he has to do something else.
Yeah,
well, it's cool. Yeah, he has, you know, like you mentioned, he uses his Zippo lighter as sort of like the point of focus or whatever.
And he does that the first 2 times.
Right.
So we think, okay, it's part of like his very carefully crafted spell.
It's like he needs the lighter to do it, but it's like, no,
the third time it's like, no, he can do it however he wants. Oh God.
He absolutely
he's
does
more
not.
Powerful.
Yeah. Well, and jumping ahead a little bit, when they have him in like the mental hospital or whatever, and the detective goes to interrogate him there, which is a scene we've alluded to a few times. Really incredible scene. Yeah. But at one point, like through all of that, like the detective like knocks the lighter out of Mamiya's hand, and he's like, oh, what, you don't want to talk? You can't talk without your lighter or whatever? Well, here's your lighter. And he lights it, like sets it on the table next to him. He's like, now you can talk. Now you've got your lighter or whatever. And it starts raining. And I love that too.
Inside.
Because well, yeah, because it's like it starts raining outside. And it's like there's only tiny windows, so you can't really see that it starts raining. But the room darkens around Mamiya with him like sitting in the corner. It's like the as the clouds roll in overhead, the room darkens. But again, it feels like he is sucking the light out of the room. That like he is the source of the darkness. But yeah, then the ceiling starts leaking, and again, I fucking love that shot because it's like a really low angle under the detective, like looking up at him, and the ceiling above his head starts to just darken. It's like this dark spot like pooling out from his head, and at first you're like, what is it? Like you can't quite tell like what the fuck is going on, and then it starts dripping. And it starts it drips like directly onto the lighter, putting out the fire. But then it starts to pool, and then it drips down to the floor.
Best believe it's
and then
that
you've got
inky water too.
And it's that inky black water, and it's got sort of like a syncopated dripping from like the rain dripping onto the table, but then dripping onto the floor. And it's like, yeah, he doesn't need the fucking lighter. It's like we've seen him use the water as a focal point for the doctor earlier, and it's like, yeah, dude, you're fucking screwed, man. You shouldn't have fucking set foot in the goddamn room. You're so fucking boned.
Yeah, well, I love how they approach that narratively too, because when they first bring him in for questioning, it seems like the detective could be resistant here because he's being very distant and kind of not letting him keep at doing questions and stuff.
Yeah.
And he gets frustrated at a certain point and, gets pulled out,
He's very...
seems like early.
Yeah,
right?
he's very... His whole sort of, like, the whole thing throughout the movie is, like, he is really fucking frustrated by this crime that just does not make fucking logical sense. And it's like, yeah, you think that frustration kind of makes him, like, immune to the charm, but, like...
But, I mean,
it actually makes him more susceptible,
him into, obsession, and kind of... He can't help himself but get fixated when Mamiya appears, and he gets pulled in just as much.
But he's pulled in a different way.
Yeah.
And he's pulled in using very different strategies than all of the murderers. Of the past.
Well, because, like, Mamiya says, like, he's special. Like, Mamiya recognizes something in him. During that scene, he's talking about, keeping his lives separate. It's like, who is the real you? The detective, the hardworking detective, or the husband who has to take care of his crazy wife or whatever. And, like, how hard... What a pain in the ass it must be to try to be good at your job when you're also having to take care of your crazy wife when you're not home. And what you realize is that there is no real you. The detective is not the real you. The husband isn't the real you. There is no real you. It's like he recognizes that the detective is empty just like him.
He's a vessel.
He's a vessel. He is the perfect vessel for Mesmer's curse.
Mesmer's curse.
Mesmer's flame.
I've been sitting on that this whole episode too.
Yeah.
If you weren't going to do it, I was.
The good timing of Elden Ring. But yeah, so as they're like figuring, trying to find stuff out about Mamiya, they're like, okay, they find out who he is, like where he lived. He's like a university student. He was like a psych major, but he got wrapped up studying about Mesmer, the like I want to say Austrian doctor from like the 18th century or something like that, who was the first one to like
mesmerize,
scientifically study hypnosis, which is where the term mesmerize comes from, is named after him, because as the other psychiatrist explains, it's like prior to that, everyone thought about hypnosis as like magic or whatever. Spiritualism. Like in Japan, they called it like soul conjuring or something like that. Yeah. And so that there's like an aspect of the occult to it. But like Mesmer is the one who started like studying it as a science. But then like throughout the rest of the film, there's that blending. It's like, okay, there is a science to it, but also like, is it magic?
Right, because the most
I love that the movie never explicitly answers that question, but it does heavily imply it.
Because every scene where someone is hypnotized, like we are seeing the sequence play out largely from their perspective. So we are also placed under hypnosis. We are placed into a state where reality is being altered before them and therefore before us. And as an account of that, the only surreal or spiritual or paranormal instances that occur in the film occur within the boundaries of those sequences where we can't trust reality. So we don't know if like he literally conjured rain in that room, or if that's the state that he put the detective in. We don't know. We don't really know, like, just if he is using magic or simple effects.
Yeah.
You know, like, just psychological tricks to convince people of these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, that ambiguity is what makes things so terrifying, right?
Yeah.
In that, like, it feels cosmic in the sense that it's, like, beyond human comprehension.
Right.
Like, terror is beyond just...
And that there's this suggestion, there's this implication that, that Mamiya is just the continuation of something that has been happening for a long time. Mm-hmm. That, he does as an empty man, as the empty man.
I was going to say, this is the kind of shit wanted from the empty man.
This movie's the real empty man.
It is. It absolutely is.
This movie's the real empty man. But that he serves as like
when I wanted more from that, this is what I meant.
He serves as like a vessel for this curse or whatever, if that is even what it is, and that when they watch that like really old like archival footage from like late 19th century Japan, it's like this is the first recorded like instance of like somebody under hypnosis in Japan or whatever, and like the hypnotist doesn't show their face, but we see them just sort of like off camera, and they do the same like X gesture, and it's like
the pattern of their voice is very similar.
And it's like there is something to this, and I love the psychiatrist's sort of vision that he has when we learn that like he's been hypnotized, but like he envisions himself like in Mamiya's apartment, and he finds this book that is just entitled Heresies, and he like opens it up, and there's a chapter on Mesmer, and like flips a couple pages, and there's like a picture of just like a faceless person. The mummified monkey is not in the vision, like that. The detective like actually finds that. He finds it in Mamiya's house. In Mamiya's house.
Which one of the weirdest like bits of reality in this movie is that Mamiya paid an entire year up front in rent.
I mean, but he's staying in like literally a junkyard. Like it's
where he also worked, I think, is the implication as well.
Yeah, that's how he got like the furnace burns or whatever they found. I think that's how they ended up finding where he was living in the first place, because when they examined him, he had like some circular burns like on his back, and they're like, that
like
must have
the equivalent of like a company town almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they like you see his apartment, and it is like a fucking shithole. Like it is terrible. But
in that way, it reminded me a bit of Seven. right?
The kind of like grimy industrial
Yeah.
like environment, like all the fucking peeling wallpaper.
Well, and a lot of the lighting in there, like especially in the bathroom, it's so yellow and kind of gritty and gross. Whereas like the rest of the movie is like, very, kind of fluorescent.
Yeah, cool,
Yeah.
more cool color palette. But yeah, he finds that fucking there's the bathtub, so with like the gross inky water in it, but there's like something covered with like a tarp, and he pulls it off, and it's the shower head of the bathtub, but it has like a mummified monkey tied to it with like its arms and legs like crossed and
being pulled with wire.
Yeah, being
and
pulled
an
with
X on
wire.
its chest. Mm-hmm. Ugh, it's so fucking spooky. I'll tell you what it reminded me of was Noroi and Occult.
Sure,
and,
yeah.
like when they find those like killers, apartments.
Yeah, well, I think Koji Shiraishi is undeniably inspired by Kurosawa. I mean, again, like I think all of the fucking like big J horror directors from the early to mid 2000s
It's
are
nice
like
seeing like
they owe it all to fucking Kurosawa.
I mean, this defined the style of J-horror, right?
100%.
Like in terms of like, very restrained camera work and kind of understated stuff. Like I think of like Ringu, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it is it's shot very clinically in a lot of respects,
Mm-hmm.
and that totally comes from this. Yeah.
Yeah, this established the template in so many ways.
Though I will say Kurosawa is the master of the style.
Yes.
And I think a lot of J-horror imitates, but they don't quite always get to that, level of like...
No, I agree. I like a lot of J-horror. Like, I like Ringu, and I obviously love, like, Shiraishi stuff. And he's more of a found footage guy, so it's different. It's a different aesthetic. But, no, I agree with you. It's like Kurosawa sort of defined the genre and also continues to sit at its peak.
Yeah.
Like he is, as far as I'm concerned, like he is the GOAT. He is the master. Nobody has done it like him.
Well, again, like I keep chirping about in this episode is like he continually is considered in like the way he's shooting things. Like in terms of like the reason why it's shot kind of clinically and rigidly plays into the story and is so motivated by the story and like how they play with subjectivity and stuff, where like that doesn't always feel as considered in kind of some other J-horror. And I really that blows me away, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's again, like he is just the best at it, and I think this is especially something that's true in Pulse and the way it handles ghosts. I think he recognizes that the best way to scare you is to confront you with something that is inevitable that you can't escape.
Yeah.
I think of like the famous like scene in Pulse where the ghost sort of like approaches the person like down the hall and just like how long and slow that is, and it's like it's not rushed. There's not like crazy music. It's not a bunch of cuts or anything, but it's just this terrifying figure like slowly moving down this hall towards this person who has nowhere to go. And it's just like the agony of how glacial it is, but knowing that there's no way to avoid it is like what makes it so terrifying. And this movie does the same thing, where it just fucking establishes a master shot and it just fucking sits there and you can't get away from it. You're not cutting away and getting different perspectives. You're just having to fucking sit in it. And also, with the lack of cuts, it lulls you into, like, it lulls your brain into, like, a state of hypnosis, kind of, because your brain intuitively in when you're watching movies, like, your brain intuitively, like, recognizes cuts in an edit as, like, a tool of pacing the scene. And, like, you cut quick and you've got high energy and fast pace, you know? It's like intensity, excitement, and you don't have any cuts, and it's like it's like watching people in a room. It's like your brain sort of, like, slows down, you know?
Well, and I love how they
slows down is maybe the wrong way to put it.
I love how they play with that here, because, like, there's that sequence where the who is it that has the visions, where they're very, like, quick edits in an otherwise, like,
it's the detective
Yeah.
after he finds Mamiya's apartment and the mummified monkey, when he's getting into his car. There's just, like, those fucking, like, really quick cuts.
And it's like that
because he's gone back to the source of the spell, right?
And that sort of interruption in, like, the editing pace of the rest of the movie really pulls you in and is striking and jarring.
It's great, too, because immediately after that is when he goes home and he walks in his apartment and sees his wife hanging there dead from the ceiling, and he just, like, has this... He just, like, collapses in just, like, agony and grief.
Galling performance.
Is, like, so... It's, like, so intense that, like, he can't even, like, scream or cry. Like, he's just, like, clasping at his face, and then cut, and his wife is like, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" She's, like, standing there, like, ironing or something. And it's
the sound of her ironing is what it's not just visually but also auditorily abrasive, and I love that. Like, he is racked with pain, and it falls to silence, and then it's once again the shot is from, like, a room away, a little bit further back down the hall. So, like, just the shadow of, like, the doorway, the entryway into the kitchen space is, like, framing the scene of the wife ironing, and it's like suddenly there's, like, a bright spot in the darkness, you know, and she's still there, but he's a part of the silhouette of the frame, right? Like, he's part of the shadow in the scene, like, and so even though he's woken up, we seeing it from the back, and it still feels like he's miles and miles away from sunny reality and her ironing.
And just, like, the way that's cut, it's like, oh yeah, this fucking horrible thing that he just walked in on is like, oh, nope, not real. Yep. And then the next time he goes to see Mommy, and Mom is like, "You saw your wife dead, didn't you? I know you did." Mm-hmm. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. What I find so interesting about kind of that scene is it's set in the home, and, you know, there's definitely a parallel between that and, like, the scene you were talking about in Pulse, where it's, you know, the woman slowly walking towards the character in the hallway. Again, like, Kurosawa plays on, like, the destruction of the feeling of safety, right?
Yeah.
Like, the home is no longer safe. You know, the police are no longer safe. The, you know, teachers, the doctors, everything that feels safe is no longer safe, and you know, it's vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's an excellent point, because I think this and Pulse are both kind of about how, like, even when you're constantly, like, surrounded by other people, like, in a city or, like, at your job or in your life or whatever, it's like you're also always, like, crushingly isolated, that you are alone in your own experience, and like,
trapped in Bluebeard's castle. Like,
Pulse, like, that is a huge theme of Pulse, like, even more so in this. But I think that's what, like, Mamiya preys on in people in this, is that he is, like, able to sort of, like, isolate them so far that he can turn them into, like, psychopaths or whatever, you know? Almost make them feel like they're the only thing that's real, you know?
And that's why I love the introduction to the detective's wife in this movie. That she's sitting down with her, assumedly therapist.
Yeah, her doctor.
And she reads him the opening to Bluebeard. Mm-hmm. And it's you know, a very simple setup of a farmer is on the road, and his and a king of the land comes along, and he says, you know, like, hey, give me your daughter, you know, to marry, or may I have your daughter to marry her? And the farmer is so excited, and he gives her the daughter, and then she sets the book down, and she says, you know, I know how this book ends. She's trapped by Bluebeard and kills him. And it's really neat because, like, Bluebeard is about that. Like, he picks up this girl. It's from her perspective. And she finds out that he's killed all of his previous wives and that she's next. And she's trapped in this castle with a serial killer. And, you know, she has to kill him to escape. And I've always really loved Bluebeard because there's this incredible illustration. They use it on the cover of the book. But I recommend like looking up this illustration of Bluebeard because like his face is still like the distortions in his face are so cool. Like he's just got these giant mesmerizing eyes. And he looks like a goblin almost, or like this, he's almost not human. He's so like, he's such an evil creature.
It looks like a Hayao Miyazaki character, like from Spirited Away or something.
Yeah, or like
the green heads with the beards in Spirited Away. They've got those big bug eyes that are kind of like looking off in different directions.
Yeah, or those like strange, like distorted people in I can't remember the name of the diary of that like infamous like Japanese serial killer who like saw people as distorted. I don't
know nothing about Japanese serial killers.
Yeah, that whole story is really galling and terrifying as well. But Junji Ito did an illustrated documentation of it. Like it's
cool.
It's really sick, and because it's all about this guy. Like basically, it's the diary of a sociopath, and he meets and falls in love with someone else who is, and they both like kill numerous people, and it's like their documented accounts of it. Him talking about how like he doesn't view people as people; they're like always these weird like horse-faced creatures and stuff. And because like it kind of distorts like reality into his perspective, and it's really terrifying. It's like Bluebeard kind of has that same sort of distortion. And my a quick aside is one of my first experiences with that is I was a projectionist in a small town that did live showings from the Met in New York, and we did a live projection of Bluebeard's Castle as an opera. And there's a sequence that they did where like she's dancing and singing, and in the center of the stage is this giant revolving eyeball that's like watching her and like blinking. And it's so fucking cool, and I can't find footage of it anywhere, and I've been looking for years.
Damn.
And like I need, because like the way it's distorted like through glass is like so cool, and it's always stuck with me. And you know, again, it's like this weird like kind of like not only physical but psychic prison, you know, that she's in, and she's trying to escape from, and how fitting, you know, that it's referenced in Cure. And it's even more tragic because later on, the doctor repeats it. She sits at the table. He's got the book there for her. She tells him first that she got lost on the way there, but eventually she found her way. And the doctor, like, he asks her, and she says, like, yeah, at one point I was walking and I was confused and I didn't know where I was, which is very common amongst, like, dementia patients. Where just suddenly they just forget everything, and they're not aware, and they get kind of confused of their current environment. And then he asks her, do you know this book? And she says no. And that idea of being reduced to a husk of yourself, of being emptied, is terrifying.
I love how referential that sequence is. Like, it's clear that Cure is riffing off of a lot of the themes of Bluebeard, and to directly put it in the movie and almost cite it as an inspiration in a sense is something that I don't think many directors could pull off without it seeming like you're doing that, you know.
Well, it works because like at the beginning of the movie she tells us, I know how this story ends. Mm-hmm. And this story does not end that way.
No.
Like, at all. And I really like that. It's not the film flagging how things are going to go. It's flagging, like, what it's wearing on its sleeve, yes. But it is entirely its own thing, like, standing on the shoulders of, like, literary giant.
Yeah.
And
well, and the fact that then later when he asks her if she knows the book and she says no, that's sort of like, I feel like indicating that like that possible
happy endings are gone.
Good ending has been wiped away at this point, you know.
No, it's hardly a happy
again,
ending.
though, I
Still
love how
murder.
like that reference is kind of presented very considered. I can't tell you how many movies I've seen where like they directly reference an inspiration by having it on the TV playing while the characters, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've seen The Thing or Night of the Living Dead on a TV
Night of the Living Dead,
Night
of the Living Dead specifically because it's in the public domain, so everybody can put it in their movies.
And it's almost always a mistake to put a better film in your film. You know,
100%.
And here it works because it's such an old piece of narrative that it's
referencing an old story,
it's a fucking fairy tale at this point, and so it just gives a little bit of extra texture and framing, and again, in a completely different setting and environment, and it works beautifully for it.
Yeah.
Well, and like the detective does like have her committed, like he does like send her away.
He has to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he sort of, like, explains it away like he has to, but, like, it is kind of him abandoning her.
Yes. There's so much guilt.
Yeah, it's after, you know, the confrontation with Mommy or whatever, where he talks about, like, the detective versus the husband, and he's like, he feels like after that, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this case or whatever if I'm also having to worry about my wife, so time to send her away to the insane asylum or whatever. And it's like, even when he's dropping her off, it's really kind of tragic too, because like the whole time he keeps talking about like, once I've cracked this case, once this case is done, we're gonna take a vacation and we're just gonna enjoy being together and eat good food and have a nice time and whatever, and I want you to pick where we're going to go. And, you know, we see throughout the movie that she's looking like travel brochures and stuff, and after they've like caught Mamiya, like he's in the asylum or whatever, so the case is technically over, but like it's not really solved, right? And so, like, he tells her they're gonna go away, but then, so she, like, packs up all their stuff, and there's that scene of them, like, sitting on the bus, and her being like, you know, oh, do you think it's gonna be warm in Okinawa? Like, let's eat as much good food as possible, or whatever. He's like, you know we're not going to Okinawa, right? And she's like, yeah, I know. And then we see at the insane asylum, and him being to the doctors like, it's just until work slows down, you know, it's not going to be permanent, like it's just until like my work is
as he gets more and more obsessed with the case, the
exactly
two lives become one.
Cue Ron Howard's voice. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, and I kind of love that theming here, because like, you know, you see it inspiring stuff like Zodiac, where like the movie Zodiac is really about like detectives becoming sort of obsessed with a case. It's so fascinating to watch here, because again, it's done subtly but through actions, like having his wife committed.
Yeah, and it's also like a part of the process of like Mamiya like emptying him, so he'll be ready to receive the curse or whatever at the end, you know, is like making him divest himself of everything that like tethers him to who he is, you know, to make him empty like he needs to be. I do just want to quickly go back to them on the bus, because this I think the bus is really interesting, because like we see it again later when he after Mommy has escaped and he's like going to find him at like the old barn or whatever. We get him sitting on that same bus, and it's just like with him and his wife, they're sitting in the background, but like outside the windows behind, it's just like
the sky.
It's just like sky and clouds.
Yeah.
Like it feels like the most intentionally stylized thing about this entire movie, and I don't 100% know why.
It was like the fucking
I
beginning
don't have a problem
Yeah.
with it. I love it, but it feels like such a specific decision that I don't totally understand. I don't need to understand it, but I think it's interesting.
To me, it feels like there's a big sense of unreality.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like it's almost a vision in a trance because you can't place the environment that they're in truly.
Well, it feels
they're on
like
a bus. They're bus to,
with the sky and the clouds, it feels like it's like a celestial. It almost makes it feel like sort of like a celestial, kind of carriage that's taking
on Sharon's boat. Yeah.
Yeah,
they're on the fucking Rainbow Bridge to
Valhalla. That's exactly.
They're being carried into another dimension through very mundane means, right? It's the back of a bus, but again, the windows are all wrong. And I almost saw it as it's them both reaching out from their own respective darknesses one last time to touch before they both just leave reality. It's them sort of saying goodbye to each other, because though they are both physically still alive, they are mentally dying.
Yeah.
And so their reality is crumbling before either of them. Her for her schizophrenia, him for his occult brain scooping,
Yeah.
And so that's their moment where they say goodbye to each other and they sort of touch hands, and things are surreal for both of them because their realities are crumbling.
Yeah.
And making that moment sweet is evil. It's really an unkind move. I respect it.
And then
it hits hard.
And then to repeat it later with just him, on his way to his own final undoing.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I do say that because earlier there's a slight kind of back and forth where I said he drops his or he has to give up his wife, and you're like, well, no, it's not, and that's where I kind of almost feel like it is. He's lying to himself about him only leaving her there for a day, but it's not, and it is born out of guilt, but it is also because he isn't coming back. His wife does kind of have to be dropped off of that clinic because he's gonna be.
But he's also playing into Mamiya's,
right. But he's making guilt. The decision to do it, or Mamiya is making him do it, or however you want to interpret it.
Insecurities and kind of
right, exactly. Well, and his obsession with needing to understand this, because again, at this point, they've caught Mamiya. He is captive. So, for all intents and purposes, this could be over, right? It could be. But the detective is too obsessed with his need to understand it and not just accept that it can be over, that he must know why, that is he could just say, hey, this case is closed, I'm gonna go on vacation with my wife,
which he really wants to do.
I'm gonna go be the husband, I'm gonna let that be the real me, and I'm gonna take care of my wife. But he's so obsessed with the case, and he's built such resentment towards his wife. They use the continued motif of she keeps turning the washing machine on over and over again, and how he's constantly having to turn it off, and he keeps getting more and more fucking frustrated. There's the last one where he comes home one night and it's on, and he turns it off, and he goes into the kitchen, and there's a plate with a cover set out, so you think she's left him dinner, and he lifts it up and it's just a raw steak on a plate. And then she comes out of the bedroom, turns the washing machine back on, and goes back in the bedroom. And so he has to get up and go turn it off again, and then he just throws the fucking steak at the wall. And it's he resents her. He resents this position that he's in, and he's frustrated and angry that he doesn't understand what the fuck is up with this weird little hypnotist guy.
And what's worse is we have the irony of realizing that Mamiya has done this to every previous kill right?
Yeah.
Like that he has manipulated all these people to kill their spouse, and so we're just waiting for the detective to do it. Which is why I like that he doesn't. You know, he drops her off at the facility.
No, he very much does.
Well, at that time,
Yeah.
right? Like we think that maybe he has made the right choice. He's made the noble choice. And then, like, he's dropped her off, you know, for her safety just as much, right? Like, okay, oh, thank God he hasn't killed her. And then, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes back to mommy. He can't help himself.
He can't help himself.
You know,
he has to.
We know it's
yeah.
over.
He has to get his answer or whatever, and you know, and he goes and he meets Mamiya in that old creepy barn or whatever, and without even like really getting an answer from Mamiya because he's too frustrated, he shoots and kills him. But right as Mamiya is dying, he raises his hand and does the X gesture in the air before the detective just fucking empties his gun into him.
Love how that's shot from away, and I think there's the bed is blocking Mamiya, so we don't see him like we don't like see the gore. We don't see the violence in that scene.
It's a wide shot,
it's distant
set back,
because the detective is also so distant and far gone, and we know it. And so, like it to me, it's worse not seeing it, like making it once again clean, practical, clinical, natural, and that's so wretched that like there isn't like a close up of like Mamiya's like fucking pulverized head. You know, we don't see that, but we're forced to imagine it.
What's
though.
especially terrifying is again, it's very much like Seven in that like the detective kills our villain. But by doing so, the villain is totally in control the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
also long legs.
Is very similar as well.
By being caught and by dying, he is...
But there we do see his pulverized
He
head.
is free, you know? He's dead, but he's free, and now a little bit of him is a little bit of everywhere, you know? Yeah. And yeah, so after this, then we see the detective going into a room in the barn, and there's like a really old like wax cylinder gramophone or whatever from the olden days there, and he plays it, and we just like the cylinder is like distorted, so you're only getting like little bits and pieces of what it's saying, but it feels like part like lecture and part like sermon or part of like a ritual or something that's sort of indicating that this is something that again that has like we've seen has been going on for a long time. That this leads back farther than Mamiya.
I love how you get the implications of that throughout the film. Mm-hmm. Really, like you get that kind of it's a sort of research paper by a medical student that was hysterical, right? Like,
well, the video that they see of the old hypnotist was on a patient who was being treated for a woman who's being treated for hysteria.
Yeah.
And then later she killed her son or something by like carving an X into his throat.
And they go back to the place. The psychiatrist goes back to that place, and it's an abandoned husk. The building is an empty vessel.
Yeah.
And he goes into it, and he wanders the halls, and then suddenly it's populated. You know, like suddenly, like, and he has like almost a ghostly vision of what that place was. And it's so cool that like,
I didn't get the impression that he actually went there physically. I think that it was all part of like his his vision.
It's cool because like it's the cup falling over. It's that vessel metaphor like made real again, and it's why again like I was like so in love with like the police murder. You know, where we broke down that shot, because again, it's showing the police building is like suddenly this vessel where once something horrible happened and now it's empty and they're outside and this thing has still happened, right? And it's that even these buildings and these spaces can be empty vessel. Very much reminding me of what was the J horror we watched? Not Resonance. What was it called?
Reincarnation.
Yeah,
The one we watched
with
recently.
the hotel. Yeah, where the hotel is sort of like a living haunted entity, a la The Shining, as well. And it's that same idea of these haunted spaces. It's the places themselves that contain these echoes and residues and spirits of people. That their power can just hop to a new vessel. This effect can carry on. Yeah.
Well, and the film ends with a couple of quick confirmations that the curse, the evil, has passed on to our detective from Mamiya. 'Cause like this is like so another like really interesting decision where it's like we cut back, we see back to like the hospital where he dropped his wife off, and there's just like a shot of like a nurse walking down a hallway, and she hears something and turns around, and the shot is very, very short, but we see like his wife like looking almost mummified, like the monkey, like strapped to like some kind of like cart or something upright with like the big X like slash across her throat. It's such a brief shot.
She's been made into like the new ritual spell to transfer him.
Yeah, and it's like you almost like it's almost too short to even like register what it is. Like it's just like so abrupt. You're like, what the fuck is that? And it's just, and then it's over. And we cut to the detective in the cafe where we had seen him earlier. And I love this little detail. He's just finishing up his meal. Last time we saw him there, he had barely touched it because obviously like he's too frustrated and preoccupied.
He's a full
with his
vessel.
Case.
Now he's an empty vessel, so
and
he
now
wants
it's
all of
like
his grub.
and it's like yeah, she's clearing away the empty
out.
plate, and he's smoking.
Just like Mom.
And we have not seen him. I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we don't ever see him smoking at any other point in the movie. And so after he's finishing his meal, he's lighting up his cigarette, and then we just sort of like cut to the reverse shot of him sitting there smoking his cigarette, and we see the rest of the cafe, and we see the waitress as she's like taking his plates and stuff away, and she just picks up like a large knife and sort of like starts walking towards somebody, and cut to credits. Perfect ending.
Yeah.
I love the credits too. What a cool style. Like it's a beautiful like sunset shot that's just framed by just like a street buildings,
and,
like residential like buildings, and the credits as they roll up are masked by like a jagged edge, and they've got like an aberration, like a color aberration to them. It looks really nice.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's like they're the credits are sort of like peeking through like a tear, like in reality.
Yeah.
Do y'all have anything else you want to touch on? I mean, I still think there's a lot of layers to this movie that we could go on for fucking hours about. But do y'all have anything you want to hit before we rate?
I feel like that was pretty concise.
Yeah, I think we got everything. Once again, the music is when it's there, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah, very, very minimal.
The sound design,
the lack of music. All right. Well, since this was my pick, I'll rate first.
Sure.
I mean, pretty easy, 5 out of 5. It's a perfect film. It's maybe my favorite J horror film. It's the template. It's the best. It's the greatest. Kurosawa's the GOAT. It's a perfect film.
Cleve, is this a golden pod?
I tend to give movies pretty high ratings, like when I first come out of them, and I'm very excited, and I've been captured by under their spell, as it were. And but this one, I have a hunch, I have a feeling that subsequent viewings will only reinforce that. I had a really lovely time coming to terms with and having y'all's help to articulate this film. And I feel like by the end of this discussion, I've got a much better grasp of the movie. too. And you've probably saved me a good deal of sleep tonight, which I do appreciate. So I think I'm gonna have to give it a 5 right now.
This is motherfucking golden pod.
Yeah, that's a golden
Let's
pod for
go.
sure.
Let's go. Cure
Deserved.
Cure is a golden pod. Yeah, abso-fucking-lutely. Get your hands on this movie. See it any way you can. Even if we've spoiled the whole damn thing for you now, it's well worth your time. And you know what? If you've seen it once, see it again.
Yeah, I mean, it holds up super well on rewatches.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, this is a movie that you can get spoiled by, sure, I guess, but, like, it's the experience, right? And
yeah,
the
it's
experience,
100% the experience.
Don't get
holds up on
hypnotized.
rewatches.
Yeah, it really sucks you in. Unparalleled, incredible film. So, Cure is a unanimous 5 out of 5 golden pod. We love it, folks. Next week is going to be a Patreon pick episode, and I know Cleveland's excited because
Shut up. Fuck you.
this
Fuck you.
next week our Patreon pick, courtesy of our honorary pod boy Sam. We're going back to Pappy M. Night, to Daddy Shyamalan.
I've got my hands out right now. Like, man, you couldn't let me just enjoy a
Trap.
Shyamalan for a moment. You know,
Science is pretty good.
We're talking about Signs. We're going to be watching Signs. Have you seen Signs, Clave?
I've seen clips. Like, whatever, man. Like,
Signs is one of the fun ones.
I'm
Signs was one of the fun ones. I think you'll have fun with
I just
Signs.
wanted to steep in like a good Shyamalan in a trap for a little bit and just kind of have that be my thing. That I don't hate Shyamalan anymore. Like, I needed to just... And maybe that'll be the case more with watching Signs, whatever.
Maybe Signs will bolster your love of Shyamalan. Maybe it will reinforce.
Let's
Maybe
not get carried away now.
it'll-
Let's ease back a little bit on that
Maybe
one.
it will
But-
continue
and I
to...
do want to say that, like, I hate that, like, my answer is I've seen clips, but, like, it's one of those movies where, like, in the early aughts when you're in high school, like, you pull up clips of things on YouTube.
I don't think I've seen Signs.
I didn't have taste when I did that. I wouldn't pull up, like, clips like that for a movie. Like,
I don't think
now
I've
as
seen
an
Signs
adult,
since
but-
I was like 15, so I'm pretty
Yeah,
overdue for a
same,
rewatch as
honestly.
well.
It's been a
So
long
this
time.
should be. I
Is
remember
Joaquin Phoenix the lead?
one of them, yeah, and
Yeah.
Mel Gibson,
That's right.
yeah.
The birthday thing. Yeah, but I've seen that scene. Mm-hmm. You know, who hasn't? So yeah,
Next
we'll
week,
find out.
join us for our review of M. Night Shyamalan's classic alien invasion flick.
I do
Signs.
remember that stupid twist. All right. Let's get into what is it? Sponsor?
I
No?
didn't.
The shelf is
yeah,
the
I
shelf remains empty. This episode is brought to you by that special little feeling
Of being empty
That one?
inside.
of being
Empty.
inside.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
Finish her up.
I sure will. That'll bring us to the end of this week's episode. If you like the show, don't forget to, if you haven't already, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe, share an episode with a friend or a loved one or whatever, or somebody you hate.
An empty vessel. Fill them with this movie.
Fill them with an episode of our podcast. Because sharing is caring, and you can also, if you really love us, then head over to patreon.com/podpeoplepod, where you can sign up for one of our 3 tiers, get early episodes, get access to our Discord, which is fun, and get to recommend movies, and maybe one of your picks, or not maybe, one of your picks will be a future Patreon pick. Shout out
You
as
have that
always.
power.
Yeah, shout out as always to our
Regrettably.
honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Mike, and Mitchell. No, I like the Patreon picks.
I do too.
I like the
I do
Patreon picks.
too.
It takes the pressure off of us.
It's like the straight man a
Gotten
bit
a solid set of good movies. with
Absolutely.
the-
Yeah.
And Sam included. I know he's got Wicked City on that list.
Yeah, there's some anime on there just for you.
Just for me, some illustrated.
We'll get
movies,
there, but not this time. Shyamalan.
not this time. Gotcha.
So, shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Micah, and Mitchell. And last but not least, you can follow us at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod, where where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. My recommendation for this week is Kiyoshi Kurosawa put out a movie this year, actually. Well, a short, I guess. It's about 45 minutes. It's called Chime. It's very good. It definitely feels a lot sort of like the third part in the spiritual trilogy of Cure, Pulse, and now Chime. Thematically very similar to Pulse and Cure. So if you like those movies, I would definitely recommend checking out Chime. Again, it's only 45 minutes, so it feels like an episode of television or something. Very bad vibes.
Awesome. My recommendation for this week, I saw a video essay this week, actually, that I really was impressed by.
What?
This creator, Super Eye Patch Wolf, he made a
the
video.
furry icon guy, yeah.
He's not a furry.
I mean, either way, it's like, I have no judgment, but
Yeah. There was a lot of judgment.
Doesn't-
Shut up, finish your
There
thing.
was a lot of.
Finish your thing.
Doesn't he do a lot of like wrestling centric
he
stuff?
does. He does really brilliant essays and kind of digging into like ideas and themes of media he likes, wrestling, movies, but social. He made a video called "Social Anxiety Horror," and it's all about different movies and anime that kind of evoke a sense of social anxiety horror. A couple of films he uses as examples, pieces of media. He uses The Curse, the HBO show The Curse.
Oh, yeah.
Talks about that.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah.
He talks about Beau is Afraid in it. He talks about the original Speak No Evil and Compliance and several other things.
I think you should leave. I think I would also put into
Yeah.
social anxiety horror.
But he digs into the idea of like why social anxiety works so well as kind of instruments of terror for audiences.
It's probably because everybody feels it, so it's extremely
Well, and,
relatable.
it digs into like the idea of like how you're perceived is like how you are to
Oh, sure. yeah.
everyone else, and like it's a really brilliant video essay. Goes into a lot of like pieces of media that are great. Beau's Afraid again, fucking phenomenal movie.
Let's bring back the summer of Beau.
Yeah.
I yearn for the summer
I
of
agree,
Beau.
but yeah,
Oh,
big
yeah.
recommend. It's a bit of a long one, but it's great to put on, in the background while you're working or something. Even
Cleve, what do you got?
Yes, I actually have a real recommendation this week.
Wow.
Not just like a feeling or an esoteric concept. This week, I'm going to recommend something relevant, and it's a big dumb anime. It's called Fate/Zero.
Oh my
Because
god!
of course it is. It's a big dumb anime. And I watched it years ago. And but for the most part, it's got a very kind of shonen-y breakdown to it. But the premise is quite fun, and that is it's very kind of Neil Gaiman-esque. It's every number of years, all these heroic figures from the past appear in present day to compete for like a holy grail, and the series organically introduces the characters, so you don't know who they are in present context, so you just sort of see a character interacting with society and eventually figure out that he's Gilgamesh, or he's Alexander the Great, or in one instance Bluebeard. And
I remember you telling me about this anime like years ago.
yeah, it's shonen-y. It's not deep. It's mostly like silly fight scenes and glowy swords.
but it's got Bluebeard in it.
But it's got Bluebeard in it, and his design is based off that same illustration. So he's got the big like weird like avian eyes that are never like focused on anything, and they execute on that like in a quite a chilling and fun way, and he basically just fills a sewer with corpses, and there's some fun stuff. It's again, it ain't deep, Chief. It's some kind of silly baby shit, but it's big dumb fun, and I would, again, if that's your thing, like
Maybe
I
a
might
way
recommend
to,
it for the concepts.
maybe a way to come down from your experience of watching Cure.
Yeah, palate cleanser, if you will.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. And speaking of Cure, I'm going to let the sweet tones of Robert Smith carry us out.